This world sucks, my parents suck, my friends suck, I suck. What's the point? Feeling depressed? I know, I've been there. Don't worry, I've got these 4 tips to help you out. Stay tuned. Before we hop into these tips today, let's recognize one thing. These tips are not going to be recommendations towards any clinical or pharmacological options to help you manage your depression a little bit better. These, in fact, will be primarily behavioral. I like to take a different approach to managing your emotions and thoughts. Now that that's understood, let's hop into it. Tip number 1. The thing that people with depression do not want to hear the most is to get up and get moving. Believe it or not, behavioral inaction will only condition your body and your brain to continue the same action. Imagine this in the converse. You are playing a sport, basketball, hockey, maybe you're a sprinter. You practice repetitive motions over and over and over again to eventually commit these particular actions to muscle memory. Now, the same thing happens with your emotions and your thought patterns in regard to your depression. The more we condition our body and our overall actions to follow suit with our emotional mood and our mindset, the more these things will persist and continue. Depression will not go anywhere if we continue to entertain the things that it wants us to entertain. I want to lay in bed. I'm feeling hopeless. I don't want to connect with anybody, therefore I will not reach out to anybody. That is my action, that is my behavior, and there's a cause and effect to this. The cause is because of my depression. I don't want to, of course, commit to these actions. I'd rather just stay here isolated in my own mind, in my own body, in my own space. And to do something such as reach out to somebody will be very difficult, but acting against that very deep-rooted emotional commitment that your depression wants you to fixate on will be the changing factor towards how your depression is going to alleviate itself or transform itself into a more manageable condition for you as the individual. Tip number 2, eat well. The things that we put on our body is very important for us to always take note of. Over 80% of what we call the serotonin neurotransmitters lay in your gut, guys. And if it's in your gut, understand that the things that we put in our gut is going to affect our mood. What is serotonin? It's a neurotransmitter that's responsible for not only your ability to get restful sleep, to improve your appetite, but the big one, it fluctuates your overall mood. Meaning that you can feel very happy and elated, or you can feel very low and sad, depending on how much serotonin is continuing being produced in your brain and body. If we eat well, if we help our body produce these particular neurochemicals, then in the long run, and this is the long game we're playing, we are going to be able to, of course, reap the benefits of us choosing appropriate actions. If you eat McDonald's 7 days a week, you are going to feel like shit. You're going to feel lethargic. You're going to feel like you don't want to do anything. That sounds a little bit like the feelings of depression in itself. The only thing that it needs now is a life condition that tells you that life is hopeless, or maybe a next existential crisis that tells you that purpose is something that you are never going to find in this world. Your body and your mind are one. And when they interact with each other, they create these very overwhelming conditions that we experience. Tip number 3. Now this one is a personal favorite of mine because it's not hard, but the benefits are amazing. But there must always be a conscious recognition to the reasons why. Make your bed. What does making your bed do? Well, I mean, the best thing about making your bed is that when you make it in the morning and you go out to do whatever you need to do, you always get to come back, as stressful as they may have been, as angry and frustrated as you might be, as tired as you may be from your long day, you always get to come back to a bed that's made. It's a little bit of a reward that you give yourself from committing to one little task in the morning. What we're trying to do here in making your bed is we're trying to create a habit loop. A habit loop for us to just practice one small task at a time. Making your bed is the first thing. I'm already out of bed at this point in time. What can be second? Well, if I'm depressed and I don't want to do anything and I just want to lay in bed, maybe now that I made my bed, I could go and brush my teeth. Possibly, I can go and make my first meal. Maybe I can step outside and get some fresh air and some vitamin D. These things in themselves are very small tasks. But in order to get to the point where they don't seem like they're the most challenging tasks for us, we must allow ourselves to, of course, engage in them in the first place. And maybe it's overwhelming to think about everything that needs to change in your life all at once in order for your depression to be a little bit better. Maybe if I left this relationship, maybe if I had a better job, maybe if I connected more with my friends. I mean, maybe. Oh yeah, you can fall into these thinking patterns, but guys, that's not hugely important. We don't have to think so far ahead when we're managing our depression. We just need to think for the right now, this present moment. Again, allowing ourselves to complete one task can motivate ourselves to complete another. And routine and habit become the biggest player here. If I made my bed 7 days out of the week, and I just tried this for 1 week, imagine what other task I can accomplish after that. Because now that your bed is made, you're that much more inclined to go and do something else. But staying in bed, again, right back to tip number 1, creates behavioral inaction. And in this inaction, my mind learns that this action to lay down and do nothing at all and just think negatively and just feel these negative thoughts and emotions, this is going to be a routine that my body begins to expect. So we must change that. We must allow ourselves to change it with one small task at a time. Tip number 4, reach out to somebody. Again, this all has to do with your behaviors. The big thing about depression is that we feel isolated, we feel withdrawn, and we feel alone. But guys, these are feelings, and these feelings in themselves don't necessarily have to become your behaviors. If you start small and make a commitment, first and foremost, to identify people that can be support systems for you. Possibly it's a therapist, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a counselor at school, maybe it's a free helpline that you call from time to time. But identify a support system for yourself and make it a daily commitment for you to reach out to them. Whether it be for an hour, maybe that's a little stressful, or even 5 minutes. That 5 minutes means that you made this conscious choice to step outside of your isolation, to step outside of your pessimism, to allow yourself to try to actually engage with the world outside. And in our depression, again, I understand the last thing we want people to do is ask us how we're feeling, or, maybe think of us as a burden because we're reaching out to them. The last thing we want to do is be this overwhelming weight for other people's lives, and then we get into thought patterns of, well, the world will be better if I was gone. Guys, it's not true. Human beings are compassionate by nature. However, there is such a thing as, of course, boundaries. You can't expect anybody to take on your pain and suffering, but you can allow yourself to recognize that they may be willing to hear you out. Imagine having more honest and open conversations with your loved ones about how you feel. I get it, you want to wear the mask and the guise all the time to feel like no one is judging you, because judgment can be a very scary thing. But guys, that's again what drives that mental attitude of our depression in the first place. Now, you don't have to focus on the mental attitude of how you think people are going to respond to you, your fears, your anxieties towards reaching out to somebody. You guys just have to do it. Pick up the phone, text somebody. Hey, I just want to check in for 5 minutes. Is that okay? And you have to talk about shit all. You can talk about the weather, you can talk about a hockey game, you can talk about whatever you want. You don't even have to talk about yourself. But staying connected means that you allow yourself, at least for a moment, not to remain isolated. And again, with continuous actions of this, you rewire your brain to continue to pursue new things away from the pessimistic ideas that your depression wants you to stay fixated on. This is bonus tip number 5. Consistency is always going to be key. And again, I feel like I've repeated this whole entire phrase or word or idea throughout the whole video. And it's true. Again, habits and routines are the strongest learning mechanism for a human being. So if now you're choosing to make your bed, if now you're choosing to check in with a friend, maybe 5 minutes a day. If now you're choosing to eat a little bit better, eat a little bit less burgers and hot dogs and a tad bit more things that are going to help with your digestive system. If you're going to make the effort, then it must seize consistency. Habits and routine is what's going to change your life, change your mind, change your emotional state. In Canada, where I live, 1 out of 5 people on a yearly basis are going to experience depression. Canadians, before they reach the age of 45, over 50% of them are going to experience depression directly or indirectly, meaning that there's going to be biological causes towards low feelings and there's going to be environmental causes towards low feelings. And a lot of it we might not have control over. But if that is the case, then we can also see this expectation in our lives at some point in time. That doesn't necessarily mean that our lives are crap or we can only expect suffering, but in this expectation, we can learn about how we can manage these things. For example, if you know that staying connected has helped you through periods in your life where you could have really fallen off of the deep end. If you know that you like to jump into a nicely made bed after a long day of work. If you know that eating well makes you actually feel good, then why not commit to these things? Why overcomplicate things for ourselves and allow our depression to run rampant when all we need to do is one small task at a time in order to allow ourselves to not only overcome our depression, but grow from our depression? It's up to you. Stay mindful. Before you move on, remember to go ahead, subscribe, share, comment down below, and like this video for more content that's focused on guided meditations, open topic discussions, or educational workshops. And please always come back to visit the detail. Ramon Phipps.